It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman and this is the Forum on Eagle Television. Good to have you watching along. Our Forum program is brought to you by Hayes Med. Our guest is Phillip Smith-Haynes. He goes by Phil around here and he's also the county administrator here at Ellis County. Job he took over in March of this year. So how's it going so far? I guess that's a good question to start with, Phil. How's it going so far 7 months into your job here?
It's been great. I've really enjoyed working with the county. I think we have a great staff, and now that we're past the election, I can say we have a great group of commissioners too.
Well, you know, you came in at an interesting time. There were a lot of things going on, and we'll talk about where you'd been before and your experience there. But being in Ellis County and back in Kansas now for 7 months, what have you learned in that 7 month period?
Oh gosh, a lot of things. You know, whenever you take a new job, it's a process of trying to absorb the basics, you know, learning people's names and, you know, different folks in the community and, you know, how we do things in this organization, sort of the cultural aspects of the organization. And so I've spent a lot of time with that. One of the things that I've learned, and I was reflecting on this morning on my way in, you know, you were part of a panel that we did for the Association of Counties, and I was so impressed that everybody, when I essentially cold called some people and said, hey, would you be willing to do this? Everybody said yes, just immediately, and it was wonderful. And to me, that's one of my key learnings is how well we sort of stick together out here in Western Kansas and support each other in our various efforts. And, you know, that was something that you sort of heard about the community coming in, but you never quite know if that stuff is true until you're actually there and experiencing it. So.
Well, you grew up in Kansas, in Marion County to be exact, in Marion. And how did that go? What was your life in Marion like? Because Marion is one of the communities we serve here at Eagle, but it's a different part of the world, different part of Kansas in Ellis County.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's the Flint Hills, and so, you know, it's funny because growing up, you know, people would talk about Kansas being flat, and I never thought of Kansas as flat.
Not flat down there, is it?
We grew up on a hill, and, you know, our community was sort of divided. There was, you know, the valley and the hill, and
the valley people and the hill people.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, there were a lot of hills around us and so forth, and so I never really, you know, that was never really my picture of Kansas, was that it was flat. But no, I mean, it was a great community to grow up in. It was, you know, small, and I like that about it. I was thinking about that, like, what would it have been like to grow up in a place the size of Hayes? You know, now having lived in major metro areas, Hayes doesn't seem so big, but I think, you know, as a 16-year-old, would Hayes have just been too big for me? You know, I don't know. It's a neat experience growing up in a small town like that. And
it's unique, and you look around people around the world and you look at those big communities where you don't have that community care aspect. You talked about it here in Hayes, of everybody sticking together and really fighting for what's right for our community. Those big communities lack that, and you've had some experience there because you left Marion, went to Kansas State, and then for 15 years you've been out in California.
Yeah. I've been on the West Coast until February of this year, and that also was a great experience, but it was very different than being in the Flint Hills or on the High Plains. We lived right along the coast in a couple different communities. I was in the Bay Area for just shy of 5 years, and then a little over 10 years up in the Redwoods on the North Coast. And so it was,
I have to ask this, were you ever a surfer?
No.
I had somebody tell me the other day their kids went and they were learning to surf, and he was like, you know, something you don't do very much unless you're surfing the internet. You know, you don't do much of that in Kansas.
No, you know, I never really thought about learning to surf. I did think about buying a sea kayak at one point. actually looked into that. They were a little more expensive than I wanted to. Because just knowing myself, I'm like, I would use this thing once a year, and do I really want to spend that much on something I'm going to only use once a year?
Well, I know one of the things, you still have family back here. Where's your family still in Kansas? Where are they?
Where aren't they? My parents are still in the house that I grew up in. They've owned since 1976. My brother is about 11 miles away from them in Peabody, which is a little town there in Marion County. My sister is in Nemaha County in Centralia. And then I have nieces and nephews sort of scattered. I have a niece who's a teacher in Valley Center, and her husband teaches in Heston. And then I have another niece who, they live in Chanute. She commutes to Iola to work at the hospital, and her husband is the school principal at Altoona Midway.
So you do have the state covered.
Yeah.
You guys are covering the state. Well, let's go back to county government a little bit. You mentioned the county meetings of the state of Kansas has an association of counties. You had a meeting that was held here. How does Ellis County compare to other counties around the state? Because I'm sure you as a group got into that discussion of some of the differences and some of the things you see here versus some of the other counties.
Well, that's a great question. I mean,
are we ahead of it? Are we behind it? Or are we, where are we in that mix?
I guess I would say a little bit of both. Ellis County is unique. One of the things that attracted me to Ellis County specifically is the regional nature of what we have here. We're obviously the university center for the entire western 2/3 of the state, but we have the regional medical facility and regional shopping centers. And so we get a lot of folks coming in from smaller counties around us to shop and play here in Ellis County. And that's great. That makes us somewhat unique. But then there are also other regional centers around the state that you can think of, the Finney County or Seward County that would have something equivalent to us. But then we're not urban, right? I mean, if you think of the big regional centers, the Sedgwick County, the Johnson County, the Shawnee County, we're not that either. So, I think Ellis County is very uniquely positioned in terms of what we have to offer geographically and with our population base here. And I think it's really exciting to think about going forward, how do we use those advantages to continue to serve not just Ellis County, but the entire region, and what we can offer to many of our neighbors as well.
I did have a couple of notes back from some people in that group, and they were impressed with what you had put together as a program for that group as well. You have some other things that are kind of cool. One is the new facilities. How's that working out? Because you kind of came in at the tail end of that, but ended up with some really nice facilities with some space.
I did. Space. It was great because I didn't have to go through much of the pain, I guess. And but came in. I have a really nice office now, and like you said, we have, I think, plenty of space now. My understanding is that county facilities were very cramped before. Everybody was just sort of shoved into the courthouse, which next year will celebrate its 75th anniversary, and people were sort of on top of each other in that facility. Now that we've purchased the admin center, remodeled that, constructed the emergency services facility out on 22nd Street, and then done the remodeling of the courthouse and law enforcement center, that was a significant undertaking. That was another thing, when I was looking for a job. It's just very impressive that a community would be willing to take on all of those projects at one time. That really says something about a community, that they would be willing to bite off that great big chunk of stuff all in one fell swoop. And so, we're over the hump now, I guess. There's still, anytime you move into a facility, we all know from remodeling our own homes and stuff that there's always bumps in the road, and there are still things here and there that we're discovering, particularly with the jail facility.
I try to stay out of that facility.
Yeah, well, the clientele there tends to be a little hard on capital equipment, and there are always some things that we're discovering there, but we're working through them.
Now, the new facilities that's downtown, that's your offices, administrative offices, it's a busy place because now the voting takes place, and what I've noticed being in there, that it is a busy place.
Yeah, probably the most constant stream of folks is with the treasurer's office and folks coming to pay their car tags, which I have to do this month.
I'm with you. So, I need to do that same thing.
So there's always folks in the lobby there, coming in to do motor vehicle registration, tax payments, and then quite a stream of folks coming in to get passports with our county clerk's office. And then, of course, as you mentioned, with the elections, and we've had, going into the general election, this will be our third election this year because we had a special election for USD 489 and then the primary and now the general. So for about a month before each of those, then there's another stream of folks that come in either to register to vote or to cast advance ballots.
Well, Phil, one of the things that is important for anybody in the administrative side of things is budgeting. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about your budgeting process because that probably isn't a 1 or 2 day deal.
No, it's not.
So we'll talk about that when we get back. Our guest is Phil Smith-Haynes, and he's in charge as administrator in Ellis County. Back with more after this.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.
The most exciting yards in football. It's NFL Red Zone from NFL Network. Get every touchdown from every game, every Sunday afternoon. And football doesn't stop on NFL Network. It goes all week.
We're covering it like crazy.
Get NFL Red Zone from NFL Network today.
Add NFL Red Zone so you can watch all the game-defining yards in football. Call us at 877-61-EAGLE today.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum. Always like to remind you, if you're out watching, if you have any ideas for other programs on our forum, let me know. Contact me at gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. I'd like to hear from you. You can also cruise over to Facebook if you're on Facebook, and you'll find us under ECTV Forum. Look forward to hearing from you. Our guest is Phillip Smith-Haynes, and he is the administrator of Ellis County. Phil, we were talking going into the break about budgeting because, we may be a small Kansas county in western Kansas, but a lot goes into running a county and to make it happen. It's a big budget. How do you go about the budgeting process?
Yeah, you're right. It's a big budget. It's about $30 million, and that's a significant chunk of change for most people that I know.
And especially when taxpayers are paying for it, they want goods for their dollars.
Yeah,
they work too hard
for the amount of taxes that they pay. So, yeah, the budget process starts. Kansas counties are on a calendar year budget, so January 1 through December 31. But in order to get the tax bills out in November, if you sort of back up from all of that, we're actually required to adopt our budget in August. So our budget for 2017 actually started all the way back in March, preparing. So we go through a process of having the county commissioners really articulate their vision for the next year and what they want to see. For 2017, the commissioners were very focused on what we could do to reduce ongoing costs. Of course, Ellis County's assessed valuation is very dependent on the oil and gas industry, and that hasn't been doing so well the last few years. So we've actually lost quite a bit of assessed valuation if you look at over the last 4 years. And so the commission was very focused on really trying to conserve dollars in 17. So then after we had them articulate that vision, I started working with the department heads of each of our county operational departments to talk about how they could do that, what their proposals were for doing that. And they came up with just some sort of across-the-board trimming of various kinds. And then they also came up with some more creative solutions. And so we actually combined a couple of departments, moved some folks around internally, and were able to achieve over $100,000 in savings by doing all of that as well. So at the end of the day, we saved more money than what we lost in assessed valuation. And so we're able to actually make a few investments in replenishing our capital reserves, which had been depleted by all of those construction projects we talked about before the break.
How, when you talk about the commissioners jumping in there and saying, hey, we have to reduce our cost, that turns over to you, and the fact that you found those dollars working together, again, back to what we can do, we can be pretty creative in our part of the world on how to save money. That may have to happen in a bigger scope in Northwest Kansas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. You know, counties are interesting forms of local government because we're both an arm of the state and you know, the local government for people in a community. But the counties in Kansas were laid out for the most part 120 plus years ago, and so whether all of those things are appropriate going forward in the 21st century is a question that I think begs revisiting. And you know, I don't want to scare anybody in you know, other counties about that, but I think you know, we in Ellis County, you know, we're not looking to redraw lines or anything, but we're willing to provide services for other counties. If they come to us and they have a need and it's something we can do more efficiently, we're really open to having those discussions.
I think that's the key, being open to taking a look at those, like cutting back on expenses, how you can combine things to make things better. So if somebody wants to talk to you about any of the things we've talked about today, talk about Wildcat football. Where do they find you? Downtown, I know, at the administrative building. That's at
718 Main.
Main Street, right on South Main Street there, just corner of 8th and Main. But if they want to go online and find out more about Ellis County, where do they go?
It's www.ellisco.net.
Ellisco.net, you can find out more. There's a whole bunch of click bars down there.
Absolutely.
You can do that.
One for administrator.
And they can connect with you that way, or just drop by your office and see the new facilities there.
Absolutely.
Well, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Phil Smith-Haynes has been our guest here on our Forum program on Eagle Community Television. It's great to have you watching as well. The program is brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communications, our community connected.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications, our community connected.